On set, welcome to New South Wales Liberal Senator Holly Hughes. Good to see you here.
So nice to be back.
You're a real person.
I know,
yes.
no screen.
I'm a bit scared.
You're a bit nervous?
I'm a bit nervous, yes. And I'm never nervous when I cross to Sky News contributor and former Labor Minister Stephen Conroy. But g'day anyway, Stephen.
Yeah, g'day, Chris. How are you? Hi, Holly. How are you?
Hey, Stephen.
Good to have you. Now, first issue, the rapid rise of minor parties. The Herald Sun polling today shows that in Victoria, both Liberal and Labor are losing a chunk of support. Less than a third of Victorians intend to vote for Labor and only 28.8% the Liberals. And we've had news poll today showing how minor parties federally are at their highest level. Stephen, please explain.
Well, look, there's been a trend now for over the last 10 to 15 years, seeing the share of the vote for the coalition and for Labor decreasing. And when I began in politics, 85% voted for the two major parties. And over the last 10 to 15 years, it's been as low as, 75, 80%, 70%. And these figures in Victoria are, a big jump on the trend, but they're the continuing of the trend. But I mean,
why?
I think people are ignoring because it's not as in our face as it was 3 years ago. But Clive Palmer is rumoured to be spending nearly $6 million a month on political advertising across the digital spectrum and on billboards you can't move. I've seen his ads on TV. It's not as in your face as in the last election campaign where he spent around $80 million, which is more than the combined spend of Labor and Liberal. So you've actually got a billionaire who's decided that they want to make an impact in politics and they don't care what it costs. He's spending an enormous amount of money, and he's tapping into frustrations around lockdown. He's quite happy to just reach out and give the anti-vaxxers a big cuddle. Come on down, we're your party. So the United Australia Party continues to peddle all sorts of myths and falsehoods about the lockdown measures, the vaccine measures, the vaccine mandates, and that's appealing and putting a base into the vote. So both political parties are watching this and going, my God, when money is no object, you can buy 15% of the vote in Australia. Yep. That is truly a depressing situation.
All right, I want to talk with you, Holly, about this big fallout from last week, Thursday night. Mm-hmm. It was Lidia Thorpe making those disgraceful comments in reference to your autistic son. Mm-hmm. Adam Bant says you're invited to come and see him, as if you want a sorry, you've got to come and go for it. I can't believe that. Who's contacted who here since Thursday?
I must say that a comment by Adam Bant on Friday that if I wanted an apology, I could reach out to him, I felt was extraordinary. And if the shoe was on the other foot and Scott Morrison had said that, you can just imagine
an
what
arrogant runt.
And I have had a phone call from Jordan Steele-John, who I work quite closely with on the NDIS and Autism Committee. And Jordan was very kind in his support. But I have personally written to Lidia Thorpe today. If we're going to raise
You've written a letter to her?
I have written a letter to her today.
Why?
Because if we're going to raise the tenor of conversation in this country in our parliament, I figured I could reach out to her since they didn't want to reach out to me. I'm not going to go into the details of what I said, but I have written to her today in a bid to, I don't know, maybe... I don't say we're going to smooth things over, but I think we all need to reflect on how we can speak better to each other in that place. That was probably the most vile example ever seen. But if we're all going to stand in our corners and say, if you want something, you've got to come to me, I don't think we're going to get very far.
You're a much better person than I would have been, I tell you what. Anastasia Palaszczuk has finally made a border announcement today. I agree, Stephen. Bringing the reopening forward a whopping 4 whole days. Gee, thank you. Stephen, do you trust that borders will remain open past that date, or would an Omicron cluster shut us all out again?
Well, look, having been being someone who spent 7 hours queuing at a border last New Year's Eve, I would hope that Queensland joins with New South Wales and Victoria in saying there will be no border closures.
Not again.
Due to Omicron. I don't think I could bear what happened last time. 7 hours through the nights, just terrible. So I hope Anastasia joins in. I'm not critical of in the way that some commentators have been, Chris. She's stuck to what was agreed at the national plan. 80% leads to all these freedoms.
Yep,
They're
to her
about to hit
credit,
80%. It would have been nicer. Yep, it would have been nicer if it was faster. But there are a whole range of factors. I mean, you've got Pauline Hanson, you've got the Palmer United Party, all running the anti-vax arguments. And it gets much harder to convince the population when responsible people, like they should be, oppose vaccination.
Yep.
So I think Anastasia's done a great job.
Well, today I think we've all forgotten about lockdowns, except for you and that 7-hour wait. I want to talk about this business in Adelaide that we've heard about a family who was a close contact of a new positive on an airplane coming into Adelaide. They had a police escort to go to their hotel quarantine, not as an infected bunch of people, but as a close contact. We've been through 2 years of this. When will they wake up that with vaccination comes the reality of living with COVID-19?
Look, it's just insanity. And I mean, we're hearing the AMA is now calling for 95% vaccination rate before opening up. The AMA represents less than 30% of doctors. It's fundamentally a union. So I would really hope we stop relying on them for medical advice, because they're not. And on their own website, they refer to themselves as lobbyists. This behaviour has to stop. Health officials, health ministers, or, the health officers that are giving this advice that don't catch a football, lock everyone up, shut the border. I mean, it's got to stop. And a lot of states are coming into elections in the next 12 months. And I think they're starting to see that Australians are wearying of this behaviour and they may see it reflected at the ballot box.
Yeah, I have a feeling Anastasia Palaszczuk wouldn't have changed her attitude as she has if she didn't have some internal polling telling her we've had a gut.
Because it's all been about the science, wearing a mask in the car by yourself.
That's right.
Science, there we go.
Senator Holly Hughes, thank you for coming in.
Chris, I'm not sure. Sorry, Chris, I'm not sure if you're sure, but Julie Gillard, who had permission to come back and go and quarantine at home, flew into Adelaide today, and everyone else on this plane, they all got taken to a mini hospital where they had to have tests before they were then allowed to go home for their quarantine period at home. But they were actually diverted in the same way as the example you've just given. It's just extraordinary what's going on.
It is. You should be allowed to go home and get the test in the next 24 hours. We're not children.
I bet they were all put in a bus together to the hospital as well, so that if, someone didn't have it, they may have got it on the bus on the way there.
I bet you that occurred. Stephen Conroy, thank you very much for your